So there's folks throughout America, across the nation, on the front line, fighting to make sure that there's a difference in what's happening in our community with gun violence, with the trauma that comes from the gun violence.
I'm putting my life around for everybody in this country. I believe in equality for everybody. And why the cops tell us we can't be out here? Like you said, we have a right to assemble.
First, a massive thank you. This room has never existed like this and this building ever before. And I think it shows the intention of Greg, leaders like Erica, but also the president and vice president to let us use spaces like this for this.
The Biden-Harris administration, President Biden was the first president to name this a public health crisis in history. So this administration invested, at this point, $15 billion into community safety efforts from the COVID-19 relief funds, and $2 billion of that has been traced back to purely community-led strategies.
One of the key things is we're here, right? And at another point in time, this is the people's house, right? We built this house. And so it's only real for us to be in the house. And so we wanted to bring folks here and have a conversation. And, you know, we want the culture to be here because the culture defines what's happening in our community. And the culture is not just the person on the microphone, the culture is the person in the office.
Me being a journalist, one of my jobs that, you know, unfortunately that I've had to deal with is writing about so many of our comrades and fallen soldiers in the hip hop community that have passed away to gun violence. So, you know, I've never talked about it from the journalist side because, you know, we train to just write these things down and keep it moving. And, you know, one thing that I always wanted to do was humanize every person that is kind of falling to these situations, to these violent crimes, you know. Because
in Spider-Verse, the messaging when I meet these kids in all different walks of life and whatnot, and parents, that messaging, with great power comes great responsibility, somehow resonated a little bit different. But then it was, anyone can wear the mask, is how you wear the mask that makes you a hero. So anyone can be an actor, anyone can be a nonprofit organization leader if they chose, anyone can be a radio host, or anyone can be a singer and have influence, but it's how you wear that mask that really makes you a hero.
I think it's important, right, that we do what we can to push forward people that we know in our community are putting their boots on the ground, are doing that hard daily work, and they use this pipeline. So that's what I believe is happening here now, is I'm in a position to be a part of the pipeline for getting that $30 billion of funding in the hands of the right people in my community, in my city, that are doing what they're supposed to do with the young people.
So for me, I look at it from the perspective of how do you give people actual equity and equitable options that keep them away from literally the worst option you could possibly make for your life, for your generational wealth, and all the rest of it, right?
Our job is actually not to deal with elected officials. It's actually to deal with, I don't want to say the real world, but deal with civil society. People who are actually out there doing the work every single day.
To the gentleman, 30 billion is great, but it has to be in the hood.
Yes.
It's 30 billion, but does anybody in here from any city have a community center in the middle of their city for the kids?
Right.
It has to go to community centers. It has to go to kids.
When we talk about bringing other folks in the room, sometimes they come in the room and they take all the oxygen and they get all the resources, but it doesn't come to our community. And so that's why we want to bring us in the room. We want to educate us, and we want to bring the money to us so that we can spend with us to resolve us problem.
This is our house. When we remember we have a culture that has elements like the periodic table.
YouTube is making the gun policy. It's a lot tougher to put vanished firearms on YouTube, to show how so there's a lot of tutorials about how to make 3D guns, all that stuff. It's actually effective tomorrow, June 18th.
But what we want to do is begin to bring our voices together to get champions for this work?
We're not perfect. We're getting there. We're growing. We're investing the $30 billion is not enough. We need way more than that. We know that gun violence costs this economy $557 billion. We know this is still the number one cause of death for youth. It's still the number one cause of death for black men. It's still the number 2 cause of death for black women. We know this thing is raging. But what I will say is I'm just proud to be on the right side of this fight. Yeah. And I'm so proud of you all for joining this fight.
And I know we have some of those people in this room today, and we celebrate you, and we pray for you, because we know that in the midst of helping people deal with their trauma, you become somewhat traumatized. But it's important that you don't become numb to what you see. And that's something that I feel is a residual effect of the violence in our community, that so many of us have seen so much of it. We believe this is just the status quo, and this is just how it's supposed to be and how it's going to be. The people in this room can change that perception to the people that live in their communities, and we can change the direction in which our communities are moving forward. That's why I'm here today. I believe that's why the rest of you are here today, and I'm so proud to be able to stand with you all.
There's a racism element we gotta deal with. Then when it comes to our kids, we have basic needs that lead to guns. When I talk at schools now and I help teach pants saggers algebra. That's what I do, okay? They come in there and they're going through rough times. I say, listen, my father used to tell me, if an old man is scared of a young man, we're over. So before you get to the romance of it, what's the two brothers who work with Bible? Man, great stuff, but there's a long list of stuff they got to attach before they get to the young cats actually doing this. Because there's a road that leads to this, and no one is dealing with the road that leads to this.
At a very young age, 4 or 5 years old, I watched on the news many of my family members being gunned down in the streets. I learned later that was the birth of my trauma responses. My brother, also a beneficiary of these trauma responses, of this trauma state. I've learned, we've all lost people in our communities. What I want to dedicate myself and concentrate on is siblings of blood violence. When I was very angry, my brother died just before I turned 21. I would say things would be different if my mother had 2 sons. If I wasn't a girl, it would be okay in our community for me to return violence. But because I had the love of my family, I was a mother of 2, and I was my mother's last child. I knew I wasn't allowed to put myself in harm's way. My past trauma, along with the trauma of losing 2 brothers, my brother Tupac Shakur and my brother Yafei for 2 months apart, caused me to die into my mental life. I was called the crazy sister, I was called crazy set. My father's in prison, my mother's mourning her own child. Most of the women in my family are mourning because these 2 men that we lost. My brothers also filled with the spirit of revenge. Spirit of revenge for Yusuf Hawkins, the spirit of revenge for Young Sims, for spirit of revenge for Natasha Harding, for Bobby Hutton. Which failed to feed what we are calling now the Gen Zs, or this new millennial children who are upset and have less of sense of responsibility for our community. My brother, and my mother, and my father, and my family has done a lot for this country, done a lot for our community. But today, picking up a gun and for any reason is the last thing I feel like we need to do. I think we need a couple of generations of replanting our seed into the soil and having more children and falling in love with each other. And fiercely loving one another. So, in the community, this is what I do. I speak, I go to my organization, my organization, the Tupac Shakur Foundation. Our mission is to identify and eradicate the effects of trauma in our community. And part of that is being support to all of us. When 2000 was happening, George Floyd was happening, and Sandra Bland was happening, my mom had just died 2016. And I was stuck. People were calling what to do, what should we do, and I don't know. I'm stuck and afraid, but I know we can't live in fear.
Right.
Erica and Kepra came and put their arms around me to help fortify my place in giving back to this community. And I will stand as a Shakur, as the last Shakur available to give back to the community. So what I say is that my brother left this platform of the Tupac Shakur Foundation with his name for whoever needs it, however you guys need me or my foundation or whatever, please call. We go to youth detention centers. We go to women detention centers. We do any and every single thing to give voice and give heart to our people anywhere. I don't say where I'm from because I'm from all over this country, Florida and Harlem, but live everywhere and also go show up anywhere that's needed.
Because if you want to stop gang violence, what you do is, if you would have gave them $30 billion to the kids, there would be a lot less gun violence. And then another problem is when the White House of the United States of America talking about gun violence in the black community, there are no white people. A couple. Rosenberg, I love you.
Rob.
There has to be white people and youth involved as well. This is the country's problem, but somehow when it comes to our community, it becomes our problem. And like Chuck said, it just becomes what we're doing, how we're doing. America is a violent place, point blank, period. It's we don't make the guns. I don't know how the guns get in the city. They just started. Is this the first time this has happened? That's a problem right there. This shouldn't. I'm not knocking you, brother. I'm just saying what we need to do. Open some community centers, invest in the community, invest in schools, start holding companies who make big corporate money responsible for when they're in a community of with people of color and minorities. Start getting the money to these kids, and then the violence will tremendously go down. Because a lot of us, everyone in here, no one in here is picking up a gun right now to solve anything. So are we really talking and get into the right people? Yes, we are here. We're going to spread the message. But if you want to affect the community, we need the community there. You need some young kids who's into gun violence and been through it, been in jail, show them that they can change their life around. And $30 billion got to go to the community, not the corporations who pretend to care about the community, not $2 million went here, $4 million went there. No, get to the direct people in this room from this point on, and then go, where do we get this next batch of money going out to? How do we solve the problems? Because that's how we solve it. Because most of us, we get caught up in the lifestyle. Because like Chuck said, hungry belly gotta get fed, and then you're used to the neighborhood you live in, and you're used to the circumstances, and then if 10 of your friends is doing bull crap, they're likely to do it too. So you have to start at the root and just get to the community, and get the money to the community, get it where it's needed, and get the kids in here, and get the white folks in here because it's their problem too.
The main purpose is how do we use our collective voice? We showed a lot on how we are interconnected, and we wanted to do that to really point out how you play a role, right? Because a lot of times You don't, it's the problem looks so big, like you said, $30 billion, how does it get to people? We got that $30 billion by our collective voice, right, Pastor Mike? Right? We were able, the administration, when they came into office, was only going to put $800,000 in gun violence prevention. That was what was in his thing. But our collective meetings and organizing the people on the ground who do the work, going to the different cities and really galvanizing folks, we were able to change the Biden administration to put that $17 billion and then increase it and then get this White House Office of Violence Prevention. That is the power of the people that did that.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
I live in Frisco, Texas, and it's supposed to be one of the safest cities in America. And we had school shooting threats last year, and school was canceled for a lot of days, like I don't know, like 2 weeks. And we had a shooting at the city fair with a lot of kids. And it's heartbreaking to see all that. I just don't want kids to have access to any guns. And shooting each other, and you know, kids are 50% of the population, and kids make up 100% of the future. So what are we gonna do?